In the quiet town of Ashwood, nestled between thick forests and rolling hills, the holiday season of 1994 carried its usual warmth, or so everyone thought. The community was small, tight-knit, and deeply religious. At the heart of Ashwood's traditions was the annual Midnight Mass, a solemn gathering where the local choir sang hymns that echoed through the old stone church. This choir wasn't just a group of singers, they were a family bound by faith and music, led by their passionate choirmaster, Daniel Marlowe. That Christmas Eve, the church was packed. Candles flickered softly, casting shadows across the faces of families and friends. The choir's voices soared in perfect harmony, filling the space with an ethereal glow. Daniel, the choirmaster, stood at the podium, eyes shining with pride as the final notes of Silent Night faded away. After the Mass, the choir prepared to leave together on the bus that awaited them outside. It was an old, worn-out vehicle, but reliable. The very bus that had transported the choir for years. No one suspected anything out of the ordinary as they climbed aboard, their breath visible in the cold night air. But as the bus pulled away from the church, something changed. No one saw what happened next, but by the time the last song had been sung and the final prayers whispered, the choir bus had vanished without a trace. The town awoke to confusion and fear. The bus was gone, the choir members nowhere to be found. What made the disappearance even more unsettling was the timing. That very night, a financial audit was set to begin for Daniel Marlowe. Rumors had been swirling for months about missing funds, and whispers of embezzlement had started to spread quietly through the community. As the hours stretched into days, the police launched an extensive search. They scoured every road, every forest path, and the frozen shores of nearby Lake Ravenwood. But the bus and the choir had simply disappeared, as if swallowed by the earth itself. Ashwood's peaceful holiday spirit was shattered, replaced by a chilling mystery that would haunt the town for decades. And the truth behind the vanished choir bus was buried deep, beneath cold water, locked shut, and waiting to be uncovered. In the weeks following the disappearance, Ashwood was gripped by a restless unease. Search parties combed the woods and shores, but no trace of the choir or their bus emerged. The police found nothing. No tracks, no signs of a struggle, nothing but cold, silent trees and frozen earth. What puzzled everyone most was the lack of any sign that the bus had ever left the roads. There were no skid marks or skid lines in the snow. It was as if the bus had simply vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, rumors began to swirl in hushed conversations behind closed doors. Some townsfolk whispered that the bus had been taken by something supernatural, an old curse tied to the lake, where local legends spoke of drowned spirits and forgotten tragedies. Others suspected darker human forces at play. After all, the timing was too perfect. Daniel Marlowe's embezzlement audit had started that very night. Was it possible someone had orchestrated the choir's disappearance to cover up financial crimes? Or was there a more sinister reason hidden beneath the surface? Months passed, and the official investigation stalled. The media gradually lost interest, and Ashwood's people were left with unanswered questions and growing fear. Some parents refused to believe their children were truly gone. They clung to hope that one day the choir would return. Then strange discoveries began to surface. One by one, fragments started appearing near the frozen edges of Lake Ravenwood. Bits of broken choir pins, splintered wood, and most disturbingly, small bone fragments caught in the branches beneath the ice. These fragments were unlike anything that could have come from the natural environment. They belonged to the missing choir members. Adding to the mystery, divers who tried to explore the lake reported feeling an eerie presence beneath the water. Some spoke of seeing faint lights, while others heard distant echoes of choir songs, as if the voices of the missing singers still haunted the depths. Local fishermen grew wary, avoiding the lake after dusk. The community's fear deepened. The bus was out there somewhere, locked and hidden beneath the cold waters. But why, and who had put it there? The puzzle was growing more complex, the mystery darker. The town's faith was tested, and the question remained, was the vanished choir a victim of human greed, supernatural forces, or something far more terrifying? Behind the solemn facade of Ashwood's beloved choir was a secret no one wanted to face. Daniel Marlowe, the choirmaster, had been under increasing pressure for months. Whispers of financial mismanagement and embezzlement began to spread quietly throughout the church community. Parishioners noticed unusual delays in funding repairs, and the choir's expenses seemed oddly high. Daniel had always been a charismatic leader, a man who commanded respect and inspired devotion. But behind closed doors, his charm masked something far more troubling. His personal finances were unraveling, and the mounting debt threatened not only his career, but his very freedom. The night of the midnight mass, the same night the bus disappeared, was the night an official audit was set to begin. The church council had grown suspicious and hired an external accountant to review the choir's funds. Daniel knew that if the audit revealed his embezzlement, he would face disgrace and possibly jail. Tensions ran high in the days leading up to the mass. Choir members whispered of heated arguments behind the scenes. Some spoke of Daniel's increasingly erratic behavior, sudden outbursts, and secretive phone calls late at night. On that fateful Christmas Eve, something snapped. A few choir members later revealed that during a rehearsal, Daniel was seen burning papers in a secluded corner of the church basement. What exactly he destroyed, no one knew, but it was clear he was desperate to hide the truth. That night, as the final notes of the Mass faded into the cold winter air, the choir boarded the bus to return home. But Daniel never seemed relaxed. Witnesses said he appeared tense, constantly checking his watch, eyes darting nervously. What happened on that bus in the dark, hours after midnight, remains a mystery. Some believe Daniel orchestrated a desperate plan to silence everyone, to bury his secrets forever. Others think the choir themselves uncovered his betrayal and confronted him, leading to a confrontation that spiraled out of control. Whatever the truth, Daniel Marlowe vanished along with the choir, leaving behind a trail of broken trust and unanswered questions. The deeper investigators dug into Daniel's affairs, the more they uncovered hints of a tangled web of lies and fear. But the key to the choir's disappearance remained just out of reach, hidden beneath shadows darker than the winter night itself. Nearly 3 decades had passed since the choir bus vanished into the cold night. For years, the mystery of Ashwood's lost choir remained buried in silence, a ghost story whispered among locals but never fully explained. Then, in the spring of 2023, a group of adventurous divers came to Lake Ravenwood. Drawn by rumors and the lure of uncovering long-forgotten secrets, they prepared for an exploration that would shake the town to its core. The lake, known for its icy depths and murky waters, was no easy place to explore. The surface was calm, deceptively peaceful, but below lurked darkness and silence that seemed to swallow sound itself. The team began their dive on a gray morning, the cold biting through their wetsuits. As they descended, the world above faded away, replaced by an eerie stillness broken only by the rhythmic sound of their breathing. Suddenly, something unusual caught the lead diver's eye. A large rectangular shape, partially obscured by silt and algae on the lakebed. Moving closer, the outlines of an old bus emerged, frozen in time beneath the water. The bus was padlocked shut. Every emergency exit had been welded tight, sealing the vehicle like a coffin. It rested at an angle, half buried in the mud, as if it had been pushed deliberately into the lake rather than driven in. The divers shone their lights through the grimy windows and saw the chilling remains inside, every seatbelt tangled with rusted fragments of bone and the unmistakable pins that choir members wore proudly on their uniforms. Even more disturbing was the drive shaft. Close examination revealed fresh file marks, as if someone had tampered with it moments before the bus was submerged. The marks told a grim story. The bus hadn't broken down or lost control. it was pushed into the water. Questions flooded the minds of the divers. Who had locked the bus and welded the exits? Why were the choir members left inside? And how did the bus end up at the bottom of the lake, perfectly preserved yet horribly sealed? As they surfaced, the divers knew they had uncovered something far beyond a tragic accident. They had found the key to a decades-old nightmare. The discovery reignited the investigation, bringing new hope that after 29 years, the silence might finally be broken. But what lay beneath Lake Ravenwood was only the beginning of a deeper, darker truth, one that threatened to unravel everything the town thought it knew. The discovery of the sunken bus sent shockwaves through Ashwood. Police and forensic teams hurried to the lake, retrieving the vehicle with painstaking care. Inside, the atmosphere was grim and heavy. The sealed bus was a time capsule of horror and silence. Investigators combed through every inch, uncovering clues that pieced together what happened on that cold Christmas night. The bones tangled in the seatbelts were identified as belonging to the missing choir members, confirming the worst fears: they had died trapped inside. The choir pins scattered among the seats told a story of panic, perhaps a desperate attempt to signal or hold on to their identities in the face of death. The welded emergency exits and the padlocked doors pointed to a chilling conclusion. Someone had intentionally sealed the choir inside the bus. Forensic analysis of the drive shaft's fresh file marks proved it had been forcibly disabled, preventing any chance of escape. Who would commit such a monstrous act, and why? The investigation soon turned back to Daniel Marlowe. His name, once whispered in suspicion, now took center stage. It was revealed that the audit was uncovering deep financial fraud, threatening to expose not only Daniel, but several others connected to the church's leadership. Further, evidence suggested Daniel had been involved in desperate dealings to cover his tracks, including threats and intimidation. Interviews with surviving choir members' families painted a haunting picture of Daniel's growing paranoia and aggression in the days before the Mass. One shocking theory emerged. Fearing exposure and ruin, Daniel may have planned to silence the choir, his own family, to stop the audit and hide his crimes forever. But what about others? Could someone else have been involved? The tangled web of church politics, betrayal, and fear suggested more than one hand had played a role in this tragedy. Meanwhile, the community struggled to come to terms with the devastating truth. Grief and anger mixed with disbelief. Yet, even amid the sorrow, a slow, painful healing began. The story of the lost choir and the sunken bus became a solemn reminder of the consequences of secrets and lies. Ashwood's people vowed to remember the vanished voices, to seek justice, and to honor the memory of those who sang their final notes beneath the cold waters of Lake Ravenwood. The revelation of the sunken choir bus and the tragic fate of its passengers shook Ashwood to its core. Families who had lived in quiet hope for nearly 30 years were forced to face the unbearable truth. The town grieved collectively, mourning not only the loss of its beloved choir, but also the betrayal and darkness that had silenced them. The legal aftermath was complex. Investigators pieced together evidence implicating Daniel Marlowe and a few others in a desperate attempt to cover their tracks. While some sought justice in court, many questions remained unanswered, swallowed by time and secrecy. Yet, amid the sorrow, Ashwood found a fragile path toward healing. The church organized memorials, holding special services in honor of the lost choir members. Their music, once cut short, was remembered in hymns sung by a new generation. The community began to rebuild trust, vowing never to let silence hide the truth again. The lake, once feared as a place of darkness and death, slowly became a symbol of remembrance. On cold mornings, townsfolk would gather by its shores, scattering flowers and lighting candles. Echoes of voices lost, now carried on the winter winds. In quiet moments, some still say they can hear faint melodies rising from the depths. A choir singing in the shadows, reminding Ashwood that memory never truly dies. The story of the vanished choir bus is a haunting legacy, a reminder of how fragile trust can be and how courage is needed to face even the darkest secrets. And though decades have passed, the echoes of that final midnight mass still resonate, carried forever in the hearts of those who remember.